give the call to the honourable member for New England.
Malia. Look, we don't for 1 second, as Deputy Speaker, believe the Australian people shouldn't have the right to have a discussion, to have a vote. We have serious issues into exactly what this vote is doing. It's not drawing Australian people together. It's dividing them up. And in an area where people always think of New England, they think, oh, well, it's farmers. Only about 12% farmers, 12% in my area, they call themselves Aboriginal Indigenous people. We've got Goomeri, we've got Dungari, we've got Anawin. I've got so many people in my area, and I live in a town called, it's an area, Danglema. No one knows what it means. It's an Aboriginal word. We think it means shelter in the hills. We don't know. Across the hill from me is Weeabonga. Down from me is Limbri. Then Katingal. Above from me is Woolbrook. But they used to be called Mulurindi. We live in Indigenous areas. We don't deny for 1 second, not for 1 second, that it's an area that has been occupied by Aboriginal people. We don't know for how long, but we absolutely respect that. In fact, we're proud of it. We're proud of that. But this has become coalesced with something that's entirely different. On the 24th of October, 1889, and also in my electorate in Tenterfield, they had the Tenterfield Oration, which is about the Federation of Australia, to bring together a nation that was disparate, to try and bring them together under one, as one body of people. It was so important to Australia for us to be one. In fact, in our national anthem today, and rightly so, we've changed what we say to Australians are one and free, and I heard Peter Dutton say that the other day, and he's dead right. I believe in the egalitarian nature of the Australian people, and to stand by principles which are egalitarian in nature, that don't judge in differentiation of who you are, most especially by the colour of your skin. Because it might work in favour of you and it might work against you. It might work against you. When I grew up, my family, we used to call it ringing out country. Going out, getting an axe out, and they'd ring out country. My dad used to ring out. We had basically an Aboriginal group lived on our place. When I was a kid, I was babysat by Cecil Casey. Cecil Casey was, today they'd say he's an Aboriginal elder, Aboriginal gentleman. And he was a gentle man. Nothing weird about him. He was a good fella. He used to babysit me. He used to look after me. But what was indoctrinated in me by my parents and others is don't look down on anybody. Everybody's the same. In this nation, you will be treated as an equal. And why I find this anathema is we've got to this point where we think Australians are going to be treated differently. And it's not just me who thinks that. Article 1 of the United Nations Convention on Human Rights says that people are born of equal rights and equal dignity. Isn't that a powerful statement? You're all born the same. You're all born of equal rights and equal dignity. You all have the same opportunities. What this will do is the perverse mechanism that you will be born of different rights by the reason of the colour of your skin. And once you tick that box, once you believe that people have different rights by reason of their ethnicity, of their religion, of their creed, of their colour, you've ticked the box. You now believe in it. Everything now becomes gradations and variances. But you now believe in the differentiation of people on the colour of their skin. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm more aware than anybody else. And neighbours, Aboriginal, have been for years. I lived in Moree. I lived in St George. I lived in Danglema. I lived in Werris Creek. I lived in Charleville. Don't preach to me about how this works. I know how this game works. And all my time, I've had to deal with the differentiation of people on the colour of their skin. On the colour of the skin. Sometimes it works for people, sometimes it works against them. And it's still there. And this crystallises it. It actually says it actually matters. The colour of your skin actually matters. And not only that, it's endorsed by the federal government of Australia. It's endorsed by the Australian people. The colour of your skin matters in the opportunities you have, in the voice you have. To be quite frank, what an abhorrent thing to say. Now, away from that, that's just on the philosophical side. And on so many times in my side of politics, I'm on the wrong side. Today I support Julian Assange. Apparently I'm on the wrong side. In the past I supported David Hicks. Apparently on the wrong side. Why? Because you've got to be consistent in your principles. Consistent. You can't have this sort of variance of times to sort of take one side or the other. Mr. Deputy Speaker, other issues about this. You will be selected, not elected. We believe in a democracy in this nation. If you are to have power, you are to be elected. If you are perverse in the authority in that power, you are to be unelected. By reason of a mandate of the Australian people, in Section 52 of this Constitution, we have the capacity to implement race-based laws. The difference, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that it's by elected people. And if they're excessive in that power, the Australian people will unelect them at the next election. We have Section 25, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But you know what? It's dead letter law. You know why? Because it goes at odds with the Racial Discrimination Act. So it's dead letter law. This is the place we want to be in Australia. Faith Bandler in 1967 was absolutely fundamental in saying we don't want to... She didn't want any recognition of race. She wanted Section 52 kicked out. She didn't want any recognition of race. Faith Bandler was one of the doyens, one of the apex of the Aboriginal people, Indigenous people, in the 1967 referendum, supported by 90% of people. As Pat Conahan said in a very fulsome and erudite report on his committee, I still believe in Faith Bandler. I really do. I think she had it right. Now we have pressure coming onto us by people who play football. I tell you, if you pay for the Australian Rugby Union, you've got a lot more things to do than to concentrate on politics. Concentrate on beating the All Blacks. Concentrate on beating the Lions. Concentrate on beating the French. Even give the Italians a run for their money, but do not concentrate on politics. NRL, AFL, the same. This is a discussion. Don't let them put the weights on you. To corporate Australia, okay, you think you're buying a ticket. We all understand that your real purpose is to make money. We're not dopey. We understand that. So park your virtue and place yourself in what really matters to you, which is you want to make money. You want to play politics? Let's all play it. Let's all play it, here and into the future. Now we have, we know how this is going to work. They say there's no power of veto. This unelected body will not have a power of veto. I say to you, they won't. But they will have the power to say, you haven't consulted properly. You have erred in a decision. You have given too much emphasis in another section. You have ignored another section. Therefore, you haven't consulted properly. Therefore, the decision made by the government of the Commonwealth of Australia from elected men and women in a general mandate and a general election is unconstitutional and should be struck out. That will create immense confusion in how we do our job. There has to be we have to we have to tell them first. So it is an issue for the budget. For major policy decisions, you have to tell the voice first. Who are we talking to? We're talking to an unelected body, a selected body. I just don't see how even in the structure of government that works. In the details of the voice, this happens after the referendum. Would you buy a car when you hadn't seen it? Would you buy a house when people didn't tell you what it looked like or how much it was going to cost? Would you find a partner in your life before you'd seen them? Is that how you would operate? No. Prudence and wisdom would tell you to wait till you actually saw what you were about to do. That would be the smart thing for you to do. That would save you a lot of problems into the future. Now, why is this going into the Constitution? We've had other bodies in the past. ATSIC, it was legislated. But ATSIC became infused with cronyism, corruption, nepotism, and on a bipartisan position from both the Labor Party and the Coalition, they got rid of it. Once it's in the Constitution, it's there. You cannot get rid of it. It's there for good, unless you have another referendum. And imagine how that one would go. Imagine how the world would see that. You know, we've got to make sure that the recommendations that are given to you, they say it's scare tactics. Don't trust them. They're just beating a drum. This is politics. What about the promise about lower power prices? What happened to that? Never happened. But that's politics. What about the promise of a registered nurse in every aged care facility? Never happened. That's politics. What about the promise of low interest rates? It never happened. But that's politics. Now you've got the promise that this won't change the way government works. Be smarter. Don't be the sucker for the fourth time. Understand that this is politics. This is politics. And then, of course, on a more parochial form, we have an unelected body, selected body. It's instrumental in any policy that goes through this nation. If it affects this nation, it affects Aboriginal and Indigenous people. What happens if it becomes parochially aligned with one side of the political fence or the other? Then you have an unelected body forevermore that is an article of one side of the political fence, and you can't vote them out. You can't vote them out. You don't get a vote. That works at odds with how democracy works, and that's a concept that's been kicked around since the ancient Greeks in one form or another and progressed, and it's pretty good. It's looked after us. It's a pretty good idea. At its best, it supports the egalitarian principle that all people are created equal. So people say, you know, you're going to vote against this because of the executive? No, that worries me. No. Are you going to vote for this because it's in the Constitution? A little bit. Are you going to vote for this because you think that it's a bureaucratic body and it probably won't be able to do the job? I think that'll be the case, but no, that doesn't really affect my vote. Are you going to vote against this because that you are sort of inclined to one side of the political fence? Absolutely not. You know, I have to say it, the Joyces have never, ever lived like that, ever. It's in our DNA that we're egalitarian. So why are you voting against it? Because I find it anathema that I would go to someone and say, what is the colour of your skin? What is your race? Who do you belong to? Because I've now got to determine the rights that you have, premised on something that I thought the world, civilised people had parked, that we'd parked this rubbish. It was over, that we were moving on, and that we in 2023 are going to return to this abhorrent concept that we are going to start determining rights on the colour of someone's skin, on their race. Where do you want to go next? Religion, creed? How does this work?
it's okay to vote no.